Good evening and welcome to the regular school board meeting for Independent School District 833. Today is Thursday, August 27th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. 1.0 is roll call.
Melinda Dulles is absent. Louise Hines is absent. Simi Patnaik.
Here.
Pat Driscoll.
Here.
Sharon Van Leer.
Here.
Katie Schwartz.
Here.
Tracy Brunette.
Here. Thank you. 2.0, please rise and join us for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 3.0 is the approval of our agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
It's moved by Sharon and second by Pat. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 4.0 are district highlights. 4.1, Bob Lawrence, our Director of Community Education, will talk about our child care staff or present our child care staff.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I have some staff here with me who are going to talk a little bit about our summer programming, and there's enough of us that we're going to come in two waves because I don't know what the capacity of the room is. So we are going to talk about our child care that we've been offering since March in the buildings, and also we wanted to highlight some of the things that have been done over the summer because we have had, despite all of the complications and shutdowns and building closures, we've had a quite busy summer. So as you would imagine, community education summer is our busiest season for youth sports, youth enrichment, and childcare. And we sent out our summer catalog the first week of March, and we were excited about getting going. And then, as you know, on March 18th, everything shut down. So we ended up canceling 856 classes, and all the buildings were closed down. But we knew that kids still needed things to do over the summer, despite not knowing what that would look like. So we started planning for some online opportunities. We moved things like driver's education, music lessons, and even gymnastics online right away, and then started developing a plan for when buildings did start to reopen. So our team here is going to talk a little bit more about what that looked like, some of the challenges that we faced, and how they overcame them to end up offering well over 450 class offerings, serving about 5,000 students over the summer. So I'm going to start by introducing Darby Johnson, and she is going to talk about some of our athletics and enrichment.
Good evening. I'm going to start off with our youth enrichment program highlights. I know that Sue McEwen would have liked to have been here, but because I know she also encountered a lot of the same hurdles and roadblocks that the rest of us did. But Sue is extremely creative and very dedicated to community ed, so she came up with some great ideas for the summer, and I feel actually quite privileged to announce her summer success. So they had 828 participants in their in-person classes, which meaning they got to come into the classroom. So babysitting, STEM, and then she had some really creative cooking classes as well. She also included some online classes for those that weren't prepared to come in the classroom, and they had 329 participants in a home alone class and several different arts and science classes. And then her and Jessica Johnson came up with some take-home kit ideas. They had build your own birdhouse, create a fairy garden, some different cookie decorating classes. Those were some of the most popular. And they had 310 participants come to the program center and do a contactless pickup for their take-home kits. So camps and clinics, which Todd and I worked together on, including, also we're going to talk about gymnastics a little bit tonight. First of all, I know that she couldn't be here tonight, but Todd and I wanted to acknowledge all the hard work that Kristine Lamberty put in this summer. She was diligent in making sure that all of our facilities had all the MDH and CDC posters up. She even was the one that put the tedious little floor pods down on all of our sites. She worked with Kwame, who was also amazing for us, in providing us with all of our hand sanitizer, disinfectant, even a late request that Todd and I put in for a disinfectant for some of our more delicate pieces of equipment like uneven bars, balance beams. He came up with a disinfectant for us, which was awesome. So those two worked extremely, extremely hard. And then to round out our success for camps and clinics. Just acknowledging Napoleon, he was outstanding with protocols, and Tara and Pepe were amazing with communication, and they were a great liaison with us between MDH, CDC. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So as Bob stated earlier, when this all happened, it was the worst timing. Our summer catalog was out. Todd and I reached out to all of our coaches and said, hey, here's our new protocols, new restrictions, new guidelines. We definitely had some coaches that said, I just don't think I can make a camp work, but we had a great group of coaches that said, you bet, we're in, we will do anything we can. We had some really creative ideas. June 8th, we started outdoor only, but we had some indoor coaches that were like, hey, you know what? I can run an outdoor coach or outdoor camp. For example, Eastridge High School, their varsity volleyball coach, first time ever, ran a grass volleyball. Great participant numbers. Our speed and strength, they had came up with some great body weight exercises only because they couldn't use the weight room. So again, some wonderful innovative ways to keep our participants active. Then we also had to come up with pods. Each one of our camps, we were restricted to 9 kids, 1 pod. Todd and I had to look at all of our facilities, determine how many pods we can put per facility. Keeping the kids in those same pods all summer, making sure the coaches adhered by that, making sure that we were staying within our guidelines throughout the entire summer.
And that did change as well at the end of June, early July, so that kind of shifted everything all over again when the guidance protocols changed.
Yep, so then July 1st, we were given the approval to go to pods of 25, still maintaining that social distance. However, they also approved us to allow scrimmaging and spotting. So that was another kind of hurdle. We got to allow our coaches, yet we still wanted them to maintain the social distancing and keep those pods together the entire summer. And then the final hurdle was when the mask mandate came out. Again, had to go to coaches and say, all right, you're all now going to be wearing masks. Kids are going to wear masks up to the point of activity. So our coaches were great with working with all our different things we kept throwing at them. And our numbers were awesome, and I'm going to turn that over to Todd.
And first of all, I want to apologize. My wife teaches in Matamidi, and I wore my Zephyrs mask tonight, so I'm not fit. I should have worn just a grade 33 mask. But I also want to second what Darby said. I really want to thank Tara, Napoleon, and Pepe for all their help. Without those three, it could have been a really dicey summer because it was already, like Darby said, with the obstacles and hurdles that we had to, to work around and things that got difficult. They just made it a heck of a lot easier. So thank you. Thank you very much for all your help. Number one, like I said, I'm just going to share a couple quick numbers with you. In a typical summer, we usually run all our summer sports camps and clinics at all 3 high schools, all 4 middle schools, and probably 3 or 4 elementary schools. This year was a little tougher. We had all 3 high schools, only 1 middle school, and I think 2 elementary schools. So we did condense a lot of schools down for use. And then secondly, we had 2,600 participants this summer, which we thought was a huge success. Now keep in mind, in a normal year, we'd probably average 4,600 participants in a summer. So we were down a little bit, obviously you can tell from the numbers, but speed and strength alone, each of the high schools runs a speed and strength program, and 2 of the high schools had numbers that they had never even had before. I think Eastridge was well over 400, and Woodbury High School was at like 380, which typically for them, they're usually around 300. So I believe we had like 1,000 of the kids in the summer were strength and speed program participants. Number 3, we hired about roughly 75 coaches. That's a lot of our varsity coaches in the district at the 3 high schools, a lot of varsity assistant coaches, alumni athletes that come back and help their coaches, and then also some current student athletes that help their coaches every summer as well that we hire. And then we also had 127 total camp sections that we offered. And even like Darby said, after we took off, or maybe it was Bob, like 800 classes or whatever from March on, we did end up running 127 totals for roughly 1,600 hours worth of camps and clinics this summer. And actually, I think that is it for the numbers. So now I will introduce Diane with our aquatics program. Thank you.
Well, aquatics really changed for this summer. I couldn't do my normal programming because of our 6-foot distance learning. And so we had to bring our teachers out of the swimming pool and put them on the deck. We also had to prep our pools so that we could keep 6-foot distancing actually in the pool. So I and Brian Begum, our maintenance chief, went over to the different pools and we taped up locations for the kids to stay when they're in the water. For all the children that were still non-swimmers, we put their parents in the water with them. So, which worked out really well because it almost ended up like a private lesson for all of those children, with the instructor giving the instructions to both the parent and the child. In part of that prepping for the swimming lessons, we had to also make one-way entry and exit for the schools into the pools and then for people to leave. We have our locker rooms closed down, only having access to the showers so that they could take a soap shower before entering the pool. So we went in and prepped each of the different pool areas so that there'd be a check-in for COVID questions prior to coming in. And then they would enter one of the locker rooms to take showers and then enter the pool area and find their specific place for all their personal belongings. And then they exited directly from the pool deck to the outside. And for our numbers, we had 462 registrations, and 337 of those were individual people. In swimming lessons, we had 259. In our diving lessons, we had 61. Lap swim, we had 29. Our deep water walking, which is a relatively new program, we had 7 during the summer. We did a lifeguard training. We finally were given permission to complete lifeguard training round about the beginning of August. And so we were able to complete 2 classes, totaling 16 new lifeguards. And we did scout testing so that scouts could go to camp and already have their swim test completed. And then we also trained 4 new aides to help us in swimming lessons. We did have a few of our staff that had parents or family members that were more subject to illness, and so they were not able to work this summer. I also kept our aides out of the pool and kept with our college students and seniors that recently graduated. Thank you very much. The next person is Amy Bernigan, and she's our out-of-school program manager. Thank you.
So we're going to shift a little bit here. So this is our team, as they just shared, did all of our recreation programming, and you can tell there was a lot of work that went into it. Our next team that came in has been working hard since March 16th when we were told we had 48 hours to create an emergency childcare program. Then they developed that through the summer, and I'll let them share about kind of the challenges that they had and how they overcame them, and to continue to serve kids and families.
Thanks, Bob. And thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Amy Bringman, and I'm the out-of-school time program manager for South Washington County Schools, which means I work a lot with our child care program. And if child care was a movie this year, I would name it The Long Summer. And I would do that because, as Bob said, for me, summer really began on March 18th, because that's the day that we took in the emergency, the emergency care children, and really began our full day care from 6:30 to 6. And that went through August 21st. So we're just closing up on that and preparing for September 8th when we open again. And my purpose really for being here today is to thank our staff. We have amazing, tremendous staff who have been dedicated throughout that whole time. When you think about it and you add up the hours, all of those days equate to 1,173 contact hours. And that is equal to the time that a child would spend in elementary school in a whole year. So we have some amazing trailblazers and unsung heroes in the child care world in South Washington County Schools. Because throughout that time, we also were implementing all of the new practices for COVID, masking, sanitizing, grouping, and the protocols when we've had positive cases. And we've been doing that while we've had students and while we've been learning about COVID. And we had over 350 different paras and supervisors from throughout the district who supported emergency care, and then another 135 who supported Kids Club in the summer. And those staff too, in order to make sure that we had consistent groups, they did things like not take vacations or take very limited vacations so that we could have consistent groups with all of our kids. So they really are dedicated, and they've been passionate and committed to our kids and our families. And not only were they really concerned about kids' social and emotional well-being, but we know that there's the summer slide. And with the additional time when we were out of school, even though we had distance learning, our staff were committed and dedicated to making sure that what we offered was really quality. And so they took some time and worked together on planning teams to make sure that in the loss of what we might normally have in our summer activities, that they would also be able to offer things that were enriching and educational for our students. So they implemented new STEM activities, movement activities, arts activities, and made sure that our kids were really engaged with literature. And really, most importantly, what they did was focus on and concentrate on building positive relationships with our students, because they knew that kids would need that consistent person and someone that they could turn to with all of the things that have been happening in our world since March 18th. And so, to make this all happen, we have our own small team here. Well, it'll seem big, but our small team of Kids Club staff, administrative staff, our out-of-school time site support specialists, and our coordinators. Not all of them are here. We have a few more who are really our TLS, they're our HR, they're our SPED, they're our enrollment team, they're our PD team, and they're a great bunch of people who make sure that we have everything that we need and work collaboratively with those other systems in our district to make sure that we're aligned. So next will be Adam to share some examples of what summer looked like.
Yeah, so I'm Adam Soler, one of our out-of-school time site support specialists. I wanted to highlight one of the initiatives that we have this summer that our supervisor team during e-care, while they were providing that, still took the time and planned. They planned some movement carts to use this summer, and for that, our older students that were enrolled in the program this summer, with the guidance of staff, used their measuring skills and problem solving to create these carts that had a few different themes along with them so that each site had one to use and rotate throughout the summer. A couple of the examples of carts were the balance cart and the mindfulness cart. The mindfulness cart had some yoga techniques and then some calming techniques for kids to have those social emotional skills and learn those while participating in smaller groups, especially because with only having groups of 9, it was a lot harder for them to do gym games and those types of things. So they found out new ways to do that. And then with that, I really just want to thank our staff for their willingness and to implement and be flexible with the many new practices in our program, from our adaptive safety practices from what we would normally do to many of our new initiatives. And then with that, I'm going to pass it off to Riley.
I'm Riley Karlish. I'm another OST specialist. I feel so fortunate to have worked alongside the Kids Club supervisors and paraprofessionals who provided care to our district's children these last 5 months. In the midst of the fear and uncertainty that we all have felt, this group of professionals showed up for our kids. They prioritized the safety of the children in their care each and every day, and despite all the additional cleaning and hand washing and social distancing and masking, they still managed to create comfortable spaces that were engaging and educational, and where meaningful relationships could be developed. Speaking both as a colleague and as a parent whose children attended programming, I truly cannot thank the staff enough. They are assets to this district and to this community. I'm Annie Johnson, also with Kids Club. When I think back about this summer, this long summer, one thing that stuck out to me was just the incredible teamwork that was established at each of our sites. Our staff willingly worked double shifts to fill in for their colleagues who needed a day off. Not only did this assist in reducing the potential exposure in our program, staff were also able to provide consistent support for students in their designated small groups. This helpfulness is just one example of the great service our staff provided to families over the past several months. Despite the uncertainty and constant changes, our staff came together and navigated the new normal with compassion and courage. I am so proud to be part of the Kids Club family.
Hi, I'm Amy Saldana. I am also an out-of-school time site support specialist, and this summer I had the pleasure of leading our summer LEAP program. For those of you that aren't familiar with our LEAP program, LEAP is an acronym for Learning by Engaging Through Active Play. Learning through active play is active learning using purposeful movement. It utilizes a natural link between the brain and the body to maximize learning. During the summertime, there's always a chance the academic knowledge could slip, and LEAP was designed to help kids keep learning and moving while having fun. I worked with a team of talented Kids Club supervisors throughout Essential Care to create fun and active learning games to use throughout the summer. I also had the pleasure of working alongside of the Schoolie Squad, Zach and Haley. The Schoolie Squad made a stop at each of the summer care sites every week for 2 hours. They also helped execute ice cream days, water fun days, dance parties, and backyard games, all while ensuring that the materials were sanitized and social distancing was happening. Hi, I'm Jennifer Herlick. I'm one of the Kids Club coordinators. Tonight I just want to highlight 2 of our summer initiatives that we implemented this summer. One of them is our Wild About Reading program. So as others have shared, we know that the summer slide is real for some of our students, and we have the unique opportunity to support students with skill retention throughout the summer months. This is our 3rd summer using this program. It looked a little different this year. We didn't have books that we could pass around between kids, so we got a little creative and we used devices to support the reading within our students. We used some of the apps that they used during the school day so they had access to books. Our site supervisors developed literacy-based games and activities that foster skill development within literacy, science, STEM, all of those different things. We also tracked the total minutes read during our program. So this summer, our staff and students read a total of 373,485 minutes, which equates to just about 6,225 hours worth of reading this summer, which is pretty amazing. The other initiative that we implemented is really our dedication to social emotional learning within our students. This happens in a variety of ways. We plan dedicated activities to really support that growth, but the biggest, most successful one was the implementation of morning meeting. So each day, sometimes twice a day, our kids and staff participated in morning meeting where they really developed that sense of community. They built strong relationships, and they had an opportunity to practice the social skills in kind of a real life setting. This year more than ever, I've heard from staff how sad that they were that summer was ending because they were going to miss their kids. And the relationships were just so strong. We had kids crying on the last day, and we had staff upset. Just they really were going to miss their small group. Thankfully this year, with our kind of adjusted format, we will be able to continue implementing morning meeting into our daily schedule, both morning and afternoon, using the small groups. So we will continue that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heather Wilkin. My role with Kids Club is to help parents navigate their enrollment. And as you know, the last 5 months have been very difficult for families. They're struggling with that work-home life balance. How does my need for childcare that might be limited fit in with my need to go to work? There's a lot of conversations, just being supportive of families and just letting them talk. Been a lot of talking in the last few days. But I wanted to share with you that I've received so many thank yous and appreciations from families that I can't even count, so many. But I brought one comment today that I'd like to share that I think summarizes all of it. This parent shared with me that her son loved Kids Club this summer. She's so thankful that we were able to pull it all together. It was run perfectly, communication was spot on, procedures were effective, and most importantly, she felt completely safe. So to me, that encompasses all that we faced in the last 5 months with the challenges to support students, to make sure there's a safe environment, and to support our staff. And I think everybody, staff, parents, and kids have all excelled in these challenges. Thanks so much.
So I know that was a lot of information, but I just wanted to thank all of you. This group represents the hundreds of people who came in every day to support the kids and the families in the uncertain times. So I just want to take this time to thank you for the work that you've done over the summer. And that's it.
Wow, that was fantastic. All right, 4.2, Dr. Jacobus is going to introduce our new Director of Special Education.
I'd ask Anna to come up to the podium if she would. Many of you are familiar with Anna Braun. She's been an outstanding member of our special education department for a number of years. She held the role of supervisor, worked with a number of our schools. She's an expert at special education law. She's a wonderful problem solver. She works so well with our parents and has been able to navigate a number of issues to help our kids thrive and to work through issues and help support teachers. When Michelle Barris was leaving, the team was really a strong team. They had moved a number of things forward, and it was really, it's tough when you lose an outstanding director. And very quickly, then we looked at Anna, and we're so fortunate that she accepted the position because of her background in the district, her knowledge base, and her understanding the team. She'll be able to take the department and move us forward as we go into this school year. And with this summer, with all of the things that you've heard from this school year, there are so many difficulties in trying to match all the schedules, and she's done it tremendously. She works 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, which I wish I wasn't telling you that. But she's a wonderful team member, and we're so excited to have her lead the department. So Anna Braun.
Thank you so much for the welcome, and just want to let you know that I'm super excited to be here, and our team is super excited to continue with all of the work that we started and to continue on this path of hybrid and VLA and hopefully someday again in-person learning for special ed students.
All right, 4.3, Assistant Superintendent Kristine Schaefer will now introduce our new Director of Achievement.
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to introduce you tonight our new Director of Achievement Integration. I would like to welcome Wayne Felton II to this role following Corey Thompson's departure. Wayne brings a wealth of experience in helping students and staff succeed. Most recently, he served as an Associate Administrator for Heritage Middle School in West St. Paul. Previously, Wayne was a coordinator of educational equity in District 622 in North St. Paul, and an equity coach and behavior specialist in Roseville School District. There, he oversaw all achievement integration programming, served as a member of the teaching and learning team, and developed equity professional development for both licensed and non-licensed staff. Wayne's familiarity with achievement integration will allow for a smooth transition into this director role. His first day was this past Monday, August 24th. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you so much, everybody, for welcoming me. I am so excited to be here. I'm actually a Woodbury resident, and I have 4 children, 3 of whom are school-aged-ish, and will be in this district. And so the work of racial equity is personal for me, seeing as my children are going to be participating in how this work rolls itself out. And my hope is, in the work that I get to do here, that I can not just make sure that my children, but every single kid in this district has access to equitable opportunities, which will lead to equal outcomes for all of our students. And so once again, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for the welcome.
Welcome, Anna and Wayne. We are happy to have you. All right, 5.0, public comment. At this time, individuals may speak to the board on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. The board will not respond to or discuss your comments, character abuse, or specific complaints identifying staff, students, or task force members will not be permitted. The superintendent may be asked to prepare a response to your concerns, and our policy allows for 3 minutes a person. So we do have a few who have signed up this evening, and the first one is Kathy Budson.
Hello there, my name is Kathy Budson. I live in Woodbury, and I'm the parent of 3 kids that have attended 833 schools. It is wonderful that after over 5 months, the public can finally be here at a board meeting, so thank you for having me. First, I'd like to thank and acknowledge teachers, staff, administration, school board, and especially students who worked hard during trimester 3 and for all that they're doing to ensure that this upcoming school year will be as successful as possible under these unprecedented circumstances. During the 3rd try, my family had a different pandemic experience than some in that my husband and I both worked outside of the home. I was especially pleased to come home every day to find my son, who's a junior at the time, working diligently on his distance learning and on a separate online ACT prep class. Like many juniors, and as recommended by many counselors, he took extra AP and weighted classes with the express intent of maximizing his cumulative GPA before applying to colleges in the fall. On April 8th, when it was stated in writing that standard grading would be used, he was assured that his opportunity to reach his academic goals were attainable if he put in the work. His goal was to earn an academic letter for his junior year and to slightly increase his GPA to earn a whopping $11,800 annual scholarship at what was at the time his dream college. Both of those goals were within his reach if he simply earned the same GPA as he did in trimester 2. But he did even better. Like hundreds, if not thousands, of other 833 students, we were shocked and devastated 40 days later on May 18th when the superintendent announced the kids would not earn their cumulative GPA as promised and all of our neighboring districts provided to their students. And due to no fault of his own or anyone else's own, his academic letter and his scholarships were now unattainable. The district makes accommodations every trimester for kids who miss days of school. For example, a student who missed approximately 25 days of trimester 2 last year due to a concussion had their work and tests significantly modified and still received GPA. While the COVID pandemic is unprecedented, modifying learning and still receiving GPA is commonplace in 833. What happened to those kids would never happen to an adult. Could you even imagine if on May 18th your boss told you you would not be paid for all the work that you did from home during the pandemic because they tried to say it was easier? No, it wouldn't happen to adults. I'll give you another example. Our superintendent now gets to break his contract, resigning 10 months early, unserved on his 36-month contract, avoiding the work of this year that would have inevitably required, but still will receive an estimated $147,000 in benefits paid by the district over the next 8 years per his contract. If the superintendent is going to follow the logic he used with our kids, maybe he should offer to deny himself those benefits since he won't work as many days or do as much work as he said he would. I'm going to guess he won't deny himself that benefit, right? And I'm going to guess if the board tried to deny him that benefit, he would fight the district and win. He has every right to those benefits.
It is 3 minutes, so we'll have to wrap up.
Just like our kids should have every right to theirs, but he gets to break a contract with us and our kids made in writing on April 8th, which will cost the families he is supposed to be working for. Closing, I'm just right here. In closing, transcript of the approximate.
All right, thank you. Next is Paul.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all this evening. I'm not going to take that much time, just a few things at top of my head. Health and safety of our children. I, of course, want my children to be safe and healthy. I'm a single dad, got two kids that I take care of. Very difficult job. I think the schedule you guys put in place every other day could have been done a lot better. I think Monday through Friday for session A, Monday through Friday for session B would be a lot better because that would allow the entire weekend to clean the school properly. I don't see how it could properly be cleaned overnight every single night. The other thing I'm going to ask from all the school board members is everybody nowadays is being asked to do more with less. I would like you guys to all do more with less. Do you guys all put in 100% of your effort? I would like to see you do that. Thank you so much.
All right, Marty Fridgen.
Good evening, Chair Burnett, school board members, Dr. Jacobus. I'm Marty Fridgen, the president of the United Teachers of South Washington County. Throughout the summer, I and several members have been working with the district to prepare for a most unusual year. In fact, I've seen and talked to the district administration probably more than I've seen my family, I think, this summer. I'm sure when they get me on the phone or on a WebEx, they're like, uh-oh, it's Marty again. But it's my job, and I'm honored and privileged to do that job for our members. Most beginnings of school years are busy and intense, but this year is 100 times the busyness and intensity. If we as a district have purposely said years ago, hey, let's try this hybrid model of learning, we probably would have spent a year studying it and implementing it, to prepare to implement it. Well, we don't have that ability this year. And I can attest to district personnel working day and night. And that is why we have our PPE, our cleaning supplies, our safety protocols pretty much in place. But until the governor made his announcement and the school board approved a learning model, we couldn't put the staffing really together. Families choosing if they were going to go hybrid or distance learning really decided after July 30th, and that affects staffing. Teachers and other staff who requested accommodations couldn't really do so until they knew the model. All of those things take time and create much uncertainty. Some teachers, in fact, were just told last week that they will be teaching a different grade level. And there's kids obviously coming on Monday. It's kind of like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. You're trying to get them all to fit, and then you find a piece that it just must not be part of that puzzle. So once a kid put it in a different box, it just isn't going to fit. And so you start all over and try to figure it out. I do want to say thank you to everyone who has worked countless hours to get our schools ready. The unanswered questions, the fact that some of our teachers still don't have class lists or know exactly where they are teaching is no one's fault. No one is to blame. No one lacked effort. It's a pandemic and a new reality. As I mentioned before, hybrid is an extremely difficult model to implement, especially in a pandemic where not all staff will be on campus. I want to share the many emails and phone calls I've received over the last month, and especially the last 2 days, but it would take too long. I have previously emailed the board 2 letters with concerns from the UTSWC, the first one being in early August. Most recently, yesterday, I asked building reps to kind of summarize the vibe of their site. There's an overwhelming feeling of not being ready and needing a little more time and information. We are excited to have our students back in our classrooms. I was at Woodbury L today for HPPS, and everybody, they're doing the best they can. But there's that overwhelming feeling of we just don't know enough, or we just don't have what we need to really plan and get things in place for our students. I'll close by reading just a couple comments that people had emailed me. So at one site they said it's overwhelming and there are a lack of answers to many questions. Again, no one's fault. We are pushing forward and trying to stay positive, but many are working extra hours to get ready. Teachers are extremely overwhelmed with workload, but they're staying positive about it. That's what we do, and we're a group of problem solvers. Another site, our teachers are flexible and will always bend over backwards for our kids. But we feel there's been a lot of work done. However, there's still so many unanswered questions, and we need time. Just for time's sake here, I'm going to scroll down a little bit.
Yeah, so we're at 3 minutes.
Okay. Can I have just a couple more? I was and then I'll just close with so that's the virtual academy.
Thank you. Kim Benton.
Hi, I'm a resident of Woodbury. I have a fifth grader at Bailey, and I have a fifth grader at fifth grader at Gateway. And I just have a couple of concerns regarding the decisions that the board made on Thursday, August 13th, about the opening of this school year. Firstly, I recognize the grandness of all the decisions that have to be made even in a normal year. And so operating under these circumstances have just elevated that. But the timeline for your decision making, I'm really struggling with, and I think is really off. The hybrid model, which is going to begin on September 8th, and then you're going to be reevaluating that model on the 10th, and I'm just struggling with how is 2 days really going to inform you what's best for our kids and for the safety of our families and our students. Because you haven't set any timelines for how long we're going to, well, you said you're going to reevaluate on the 10th. And so neighboring districts have extended, they have said that they're going to be operating under the hybrid model or whatever model they have decided for some period of time. And yet this district hasn't done that. I know that you're going to give a week's notice for families to pivot, but that's a lot of pivoting that they have to do. And I just imagine the inconsistency and the instability of having to switch really quickly is going to be very hard. I know it will be hard for my family. So I just really encourage the board to encourage Superintendent Nielsen, who is going to be making that decision, to just think about what other surrounding districts are doing with the same type of case rate information and the same kind of situations, what kind of models they're instituting, and perhaps follow suit with those models. ISD 197, 622, Hastings, Stillwater, they have all established something where they have extended themselves some timeline and some buffer. So I'm really concerned as a parent about my children's return and that there just hasn't quite been enough time given, enough time for that decision-making process. So you've rescinded some votes, meaning you haven't been settled with your course of action. And so I feel like, there's room here again for you to adjust that when necessary with all safety of our students and our families and our staff in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Kath.
Good evening, everybody. Board Chair Brunette, board members, community, and staff. I stand before you because of one person, and that person is Dr. Jacobus this evening. I'm here to recognize him. I figured I was here for his first meeting, and I wanted to be here for his last meeting, and send you off in a good way. I want to thank you from the community and me personally for your dedication to this district, your passion, and your work ethic. You did an outstanding job, and you should be proud of that work that you left behind. I just want to share a couple of those key accomplishments that I reflected back on. This superintendent brought a new strategic plan to us, one that did it ignited a passion for lifelong learning. He brought a new guiding change process that helped guide this district through numerous big initiatives. He delivered on a new accountability for this district that put us as number 1, 2, or 3 as English, math, and science scores. That's something to be very proud of with our neighboring districts. You brought a new personal development plan to this district, both for staff and the board. Well, and you not only did that, you thought about your progression plan and brought us a new leader that came out of the woodwork, that you developed into that position. That district will have a smooth transition now. You implemented a training for the board that had a high-performing board that was the envy of the Twin Cities. You brought forward successful referendums and bond referendums. You brought the student voice into every decision you did. You built a trusting relationship with the board, parents, community, staff. And if there's one word that'll bring back a memory, #snow days will tell you how much trust you had in the community and with our students. You had a willingness to have a conversation with anybody, any parent at any time. You brought parent academies, coffee shops, coffee talks, a man that went out of his way to help the community. And I can't tell you, Dr. Jacobus, how impressed I was with your tireless energy. I never saw a superintendent in my tenure as a board member in the classroom as much as you were. That's a true passion for what you were delivering. For me, it was an honor to serve with you, an honor that grew to a friendship that I know we're going to continue for a long time. And what's going to be fun, Dr. Jacobus, and I'll call you Keith now, is now we can sit back at the coffee shop and do the armchair quarterback stuff together. And we can think about way 833 is going, but I know we won't do that. We will sit and have a debate over our football teams to figure out, is it the Vikings and the Packers? And you know it's always the Vikings. But in that, I just want to also congratulate Julie Nelson. The district is going to be in good hands. You'll do an outstanding job. Congratulations on your appointment. So in conclusion, Dr. Jacobus, enjoy your retirement. You've earned it. You should be very proud of what you did. And the one thing I would close with is this statement. I know you're an avid cyclist and skier. My ask, keep your tires flat on the ground and your skis always facing up. With that, best to you and your family, and congratulations.
Thank you. All right, 6.0, consent items. All consent items are considered routine and non-controversial by the school board and will be approved by a single motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the meeting, though board members had the opportunity to review them and could have requested one be moved to an action item. That didn't happen this evening, so I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Moved by Pat, second by Katie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7.0 workshop items, they will be on our agenda for September 10th. 8.0 are information items, and 8.1 is our virtual learning academy with our Director of Teaching and Learning, Kelly Schaefer.
All right. Good evening, Chair Brunette, board members, Superintendent Jacobus for another, week, and Cabinet. Tonight I'm here to give an update on our Virtual Learning Academy, or you'll hear it referred to as VLA. And when the governor released the Safe Learning Plan for the fall, all districts were required to provide this option for parents who decided that in-person learning on any level wasn't safe for their family. For the overview tonight, I'm going to begin trying to delineate between some key terms. I'm going to talk about a timeline, including what work we were able to do before the announcement and the work that needed to happen after the announcement.
I'm going to talk about 3 of the key guidelines put forth by the Department of Education, or MDE, that became the pillars of building our VLA. Then we'll get into specifics about the elementary and secondary VLA models, including the framework for the schedule and some of the most frequently asked questions. And finally, we'll end with the wrap-up of next steps. Before I get into our talking points, I want to introduce some what I call definite resident experts that are here tonight. And in the event there are questions that you have related specifically to scheduling at our secondary, which is a very complicated process, these people have worked tirelessly since January, literally. At Woodbury Middle School, Carrie Lopez and Kelly Isaacson. At Oltman, Joni Hagebach. At Woodbury High School, Sarah Sorensen Wagner. And Eastridge, Jim Smokovich, and Ashley Ruka. So thank you for representing you and your colleagues, and I will let you know when I need your help. Not if, but when. These people, seriously, before I begin, are truly amazing leaders. I want to thank them for our collaboration, our ability to disagree with each other, but eventually come to consensus, and they're truly laser focused on doing what's best for students that walk through their doors. That was at the forefront of every conversation that we had this summer. So thank you. So clarifying some of the key terms you're going to hear tonight and probably into the future. Distance learning is a term we use. It is one of the 3 models that the district may toggle between. If the district is in distance learning model, all students will be learning remotely, which at the secondary level you'll see increases the ability of teachers to have that real-time interaction. But the academic expectations remain the same. So the expectations of teachers pushing out works remain the same regardless of our model. Virtual learning is the model we developed for families, like I mentioned, who determined that school in person was not an option for their child right now. Families have the opportunity to evaluate their situation on a trimester basis. Virtual learning is a combination of self-directed learning and real-time learning opportunities. We will get into those specifics as we go through the presentation this evening. And finally, online learning. Online learning is designed to be delivered fully in self-directed remote learning environment. Students have autonomy over time and place, and curriculum is delivered usually in the form of modules or units, and they're pushed out to students and they complete the work within deadlines set forth. We do have some online courses. You've heard about them in the past, and so we are down the journey. We started down the journey even before this regarding SOWASHCO online, and I believe we have nine courses that are approved through our program of study process. Because of this and the pandemic and our teachers switching to remote, I anticipate that our journey in becoming an online provider will move much quicker than we anticipated when we started. So I'm hopeful this year, once we get underway, we can continue those conversations for online courses for our students. One of the most prevalent comments we've heard is that you've had time for this all summer. You've been planning all summer. And yes, we have been planning. So I'm going to give you a big picture overview on kind of the timeline of the events. Once those general guidelines were released by MDE in June, we continued to build master schedules. And I say continue, as I mentioned, those start the moment students register. So we were prepared for the potential of choosing between any one of those 3 come the fall. Once the guidelines were released and we had to shift our thinking a little bit to include the 4th scenario, the ability to shift between 3 models for the district and offering full-time distance learning, which evolved to become our Virtual Learning Academy. So that was kind of the bigger shift in thinking as we were doing our planning through June and July. Once we had a loose framework, so we had an idea of what our hybrid would look like, we had an idea of what our Virtual Learning Academy would look like, we asked families to commit to the district model or the Virtual Learning Academy model. So simultaneously, we were trying to plan and schedule for a group of students that we knew nothing about, learning modes and special services aside, just sheer numbers. We didn't have a sense. We had done a survey, so I shouldn't say we didn't have a sense, but when it came to it, were parents really going to commit to this model, and did they need, and because they needed this model. And yet families didn't want to commit because they didn't know enough about it. So it was completely understandable. It was just at that time, it was really difficult to explain exactly what our model would look like and then have parents commit fully and then not change their minds. I get it, it's your child and you want to do what's best for your child and your family, and it's tough. But that back and forth created a lot of questions for us as we built our hybrid model and our distance learning model. Once we started to get that number a little bit more solid, we asked ourselves, how do we deliver this quality learning experience for our district dial students and our virtual learning families and stay within the timeline of the school calendar, keeping our students in their course selections or as close to as possible, particularly our high school students where they were committing to very selective courses. And I'll get into more specifics about that later. Or even think about beginning to rebuild our master schedules that have been worked on since January. And that whole paragraph was in 5 days, August 3rd through August 7th. So we met and we met and we met, and we discovered as we had more conversations, the nuances to the process, other things came up. How many staff are going to be approved for remote work? And what does that look like? How do we make sure teacher assignments are done appropriately, where it's a win-win? This is where they want to be, and this is where it's good for kids. When we finally landed on a framework, we began that process of A/B grouping and VLA sections. And please note, we still had families that were making that decision, so they were moving in and out. And I can't thank the student information system staff and our building secretaries enough for the conversations that they had, the questions that they answered as these families made this decision. Which brought us to this week, preparing for that public release of student schedules, the AB groups, and the VLA. And we know it has been far from perfect. Yet when we talk with colleagues around the metro, honestly, we feel really good about what we are offering our students and families in 833. Dr. Brookins used an analogy this week, and it fits perfectly. He said, we need to Apollo 13 this situation. We are in space, and we need to land. And this process has been a string of Apollo 13 situations, just a different issue every time. So here we are. So we have landed. And to put a little more detail to that timeline, these were the pillars that MDE gave us for the full-time distance learning offerings for our families. That students receive the same calendar days and hours of instruction, that the curriculum follows the same academic standards and pacing provided to students in the building, and that instruction includes interaction with licensed teachers and access to materials, technologies, and resources. So as I go through each model, I'll discuss how we strive to meet these requirements to build our VLA. I will begin with our elementary. And as you know, Dr. Brookins came aboard this summer, and it was quite the summer to make a switch and then be assigned to elementary. And so I worked closely with him, and he was amazing leading our elementary principals in some tough conversations. Because of broader licenses in elementary, and I'm talking teacher licenses, we knew we were able to group elementary students a little bit differently. And so we knew we were going to group them into cohorts of classrooms and build a classroom of all students who are in VLA. So a teacher could be a dedicated VLA teacher. We asked teachers to plan academic work based on the guidance listed. So knowing our students are at home full-time, teachers are planning expectations of language arts or ELA, math, social studies, science, or health, and social emotional or SEL. We also assigned specialists, so art, music, PE, and media are assigned to our virtual learning academy for elementary. We also put together some real-time video conference weekly expectations. So for elementary, our elementary teachers will be in front of the screen with their elementary students under these guidelines. So each student should be in front of the screen with their teacher for 2.5 hours per week for language arts, 2.5 hours per week for math, and 75 minutes of social emotional. And we put it in the week because, as you'll see in the next slide, if I have 25 kindergartners, having them online for an hour as a whole group probably isn't very effective. So we wanted the teacher to get to know the students and be able to build their schedule so that it was productive and positive learning time. So that's why we went through the 2.5 hours through the week. So this is what a sample teacher's schedule might look like for our elementary. That they would prep and have their learning posted to Seesaw by 9 a.m. They would then get online and meet with their class and do their social emotional check-in and overview of the day and how's it going. Then they would start that whole group lesson. Then they may transition into a smaller group. Then there's time for individual feedback or individual check-ins with families or kids. Maybe that a student didn't show up, and then there's a time to make a phone call to that family. Then we built in some time where they can complete their specialist work for the day. So our specialists will be also pushing out activities on Seesaw, so students can complete their specialist activities. And then in the afternoon, do another kind of session of whole group or small group. And this is just a sample, but our teachers will be looking at their class list. They'll be getting to know their students, and hopefully a week or two into it, they will have a schedule that parents will know. Every day my kid has language arts at 9:30, and they have math at 11. And then they'll know what the expectations are in between there. We've had a lot of questions around numbers in VLA, and these certainly, as we mentioned, these have fluctuated on a daily, if not hourly basis. The range, you can see in here the range from kindergarten to 5th grade, and we have spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we balance these sections as close to district guidelines as possible. So these are our numbers as of 4 o'clock. I do want to add that 2nd grade did change from 24 to 33 after 4 o'clock, from 24 to 29. So we were able to pull 4 kids out of that 33 section and reallocate them to a different section. You can see the average class sizes range from 23.5 to 31.8 in 5th grade. And you can see the number of sections. So that's the number of teachers assigned to the VLA. And we have around anywhere from 260 in kindergarten total enrollment to 325 in 1st grade. And you can see that as the top line there. I mentioned specialists. So every week, all grade levels will have 2 days of physical education and 2 days of music. And then media and art will be on a rotation. So for example, in the first week, our 5th graders will have media and art also in their specials. And these are taught by our licensed specialists for elementary. I've had the opportunity to work with that group, and they have just been so giving and so just wanting to make it right for kids. And to Marty's point, that's where all of our teachers are at. And so it's just been really wonderful to have those conversations with them. Any questions on the elementary model before I move to secondary?
I had a question. What about kids who are in the choice programs like Gateway or Spanish Immersion? What are we doing? How are they accommodated in this model?
Yeah, they are, our Gateway program and our Spanish Immersion program built their own VLA within their school. So they use their teachers and they're building it within their schools. They will receive specials in the schedule, but they are doing the academic structures within their school. Okay. And I know that was a question about Spanish Immersion when we started. And that was one of those that, well, we can't promise until we see. So as a parent, that's a difficult, do I commit if I don't know? And so, but Principal Maldonado was able to make that work. Any other elementary questions? All right, secondary. So you've seen these. These are again, the pillars that kind of were the cornerstone of our conversation. And as I mentioned, this is from MDE, and when we had conversations and we were like, well, that's not going to work because, and we usually came back to these 3 pillars. The same instruction as the district learning model, the curriculum and academic standards, and interaction with our teachers. So our first option that we considered, was building our own VLA, which similar to what we did in elementary. Once we began to discuss the potential of doing this, it would have meant that student course selections would have been very, very limited. As an example, just an example, if you signed, this seems minimal, but to this student, if you signed up for Honors English 10, and we didn't have enough to build a section, you would have been put into English 10. And yep, that meets graduation requirements, and that student would probably be fine, but that's not the path that they've selected for themselves. And so after looking at all of the students that wanted the VLA and their course selections, we thought it's possible to build a VLA high school. Our master schedulers were like, sure, it's possible. But that would have meant breaking down all 3 high school schedules and basically building 4. We would have built a VLA, and then our 3 high schools would have had to rebuild. And I can tell you, I know there's no way we would have stayed on his timeline to start school anywhere near where we were hoping. And I just wanted to kind of give you some data around why. Because I was excited Marty said puzzle. This is the biggest puzzle anyone has ever put together, a secondary schedule. There's over 170 different courses. Every teacher has a specific license to teach that course. Many courses require specialty training, like AVID, International Baccalaureate, Advanced Placement. And we have several classes that can only be taught by one specific person, like our project Lead the Way, things like that. We also, as we looked at the staff approved to work from home, it would have been great if it would have balanced each department, had the right amount of kids, and that could have been our, but there was a much different ratio between departments. Like up to 1/3 of a department was approved to teach from home, but then 0 of a different department were approved to teach from home. And then the biggest thing that's kind of our own language when we're scheduling is singletons, doubletons, and a singleton means that this class is only offered 1 time in the whole year. And the 30 kids that registered for it can't have any other conflicts or they don't get into this class. And so we have over 30 of those classes that are hand scheduled so that every kid who wants them, for the most part, 99%, gets in them. And then you put your doubletons, or the ones that have 2 sections, and you build your schedule like that. And then you cross your fingers and your toes, and you hit the wizard, and your students load, and you pray to God it's over 90%. And if it's not, then you go back and you move one course and then another course, and it's a forever process. And that's just the administrative part, because then it goes to the counselors who look at their kids and know their kids, and they move their kids around. And then you look at students who need special services and making sure they're in the right spaces. So I don't want to belabor this, but it is a huge process that wouldn't have happened in our timeline. So we considered option 2. We looked at, very briefly, honestly, purchasing a curriculum. Some of our neighboring districts have decided to do this. And in looking at, and I use APAS as one example, it's usually, those terms, it's an online curriculum. So the modules get pushed out to students. And there's limited, if any, real-time contact, which I understand is what people are most frustrated about, is real time. But purchasing a curriculum isn't purchasing a teacher. And so this also would have caused another issue on the other side. So we purchased this, but what do we do with the teachers who are assigned to teach these now? And so we wanted to make sure that our teachers were in front of our kids. So we landed on the framework that all academic content will be delivered using our virtual platform, or Schoology. Teachers are posting an expected 90 minutes of academic engagement for each class each day, which results in kind of the one-sentence summary of remote independent work with in-person and real-time support from 833 teachers. And that in-person and real-time support involves reteaching. It involves meeting with small groups, meeting with individuals, making those relationship connections. So that is, everyone is getting the content in the same way, and they're getting support in different ways. The in-person model approximately is around 7.5 hours a week that a student will be with a teacher getting support. And in the VLA, it ranges based on how often they're going to reach out during this afternoon time that you'll see, from about 5.5 hours to 10.5 hours that a teacher is available to our VLA students. So you can kind of see where that support falls. I know, as I mentioned, it's not perfect, and our teachers have done an amazing job planning, and so we're excited to see how this looks and how this turns out. This is what it looks like for 3 different schedules, or well, 4. The hybrid student in person. So this is a middle school Monday through Thursday. The hybrid student in person is going to arrive. They're going to go to periods 1, 2, and 3, have lunch, and then that student dismissal will be staggered as well. And then they will have additional work, so they may go home, and they have that from 2 to 3:20-ish to complete that work for the day. The teacher schedule is very similar. The teachers are posting their lessons in Schoology by 8 a.m. They're going through their periods. Then they have a time for preparation, and then office hours where they're available to our virtual learning kids or the distance learning kids that go home and need to reach out. And our VLA student, if we've established a schedule as a VLA student, they're gonna see that their work is there by 8, and for the 90 minutes that's student engagement with the academic content, they'll work on period 1 and so forth. Then in that afternoon is the opportunity to reach out to teachers for support. And that 1 to 3:20 will vary for teachers because there is prep time for teachers in the afternoon, and some teachers have it during the day and some teachers don't. Either way, I can guarantee you our teachers will be using that time for prep because it's going to be a lot of work to do this model. On flexible instruction days, so Fridays, this is where that real time comes in for our VLA students. The teacher brings them in virtually real time based on the schedule here. And then Friday afternoons are available for building meetings, professional development, and students to reach out to teachers for questions if they're available. The high school is very similar, just varying times. And again, we have the 3 periods, and the student arrival's a little bit later. The lessons are posted a little bit later, but you can see the 3 different scenarios for our high school students. And then the Friday flexible instruction day for our students. I should note on days that we only have 4 days, there isn't a flexible instruction day. So for example, the first week of school is a 4-day week, and because we miss Monday, Friday becomes that A day. So on 4-day weeks, we did make that adjustment. So some of the biggest questions we get, how is this different than the spring? In the spring, for course content and pacing, there were 10 days automatically removed from the governor saying, we're going to give you this time to prepare. But as Marty mentioned, we would have spent a year, but we'll take 10 days. And then we were given guidance that this is a pandemic. We have never been here before. We have no idea. We don't know who has devices. I mean, our technology department was working really hard to make sure everyone had access. But we were given guidance to say, you know what, focus on 50 to 60% of your main content. And now in the fall, because we've been able to build this model, we've said, you need to expect 90 minutes a day from your kids. And when we do the math, and as teachers, they're very much planners, it's around the 44 hours per credit, which is very close to where we are in our old model, in what we were doing before. For attendance, we were very flexible in the spring because it was a pandemic. I mean, this is new. We wanted to make sure kids were okay. We were We're checking in with them. For the fall, we use words in education like loose and tight. For the fall, attendance procedures are very tight. Students, there will be an attendance post or attendance question, and students are expected to interact with that before 3 o'clock. Otherwise, they'll be considered absent for that class. And that'll be new for our students. And then, as mentioned, grades were a very hot topic and continue to be. We did post the grades, A, B's, pass, no pass, but they weren't included because our expectations weren't the same. And to compare a grade from Tri-3 to a grade from a different one, it was a forever conversation, and we didn't come upon that decision lightly. And I know Dr. Jacobus has taken a lot of the questions and the comments. This truly was all of us sitting down on what's best for kids right now. And I know there's definitely situations where it feels like it wasn't fair. I empathize with that. It was just educationally to compare that trimester to any other, it just didn't feel right. We do know better. When you know better, you do better. And so students will be graded using the traditional scale. And we knew that was important to put out there. And we know we're going to hear, well, what if you change it? We will not change it. But we will give students and teachers the opportunity to say, you know what, this whole model of education isn't for me, and I'm going to just need that pass or no grade. But they're going in knowing that. Everybody's going in knowing that. So what is next? What are next steps? I don't know. We know, to the other comment, we know we're hopeful that we can stay in a model for an extended period of time. And any time we can get in front of our kids is worth it. And so I know this is really hard, but to see them and to try to get back to some type of walking through a school door for some of our kids is going to be really important. And we really want to avoid transitions for families. And we also want to keep families and our staff safe. However, if we do transition or when we do transition, we really believe we've built a model that's going to go between these very, very seamlessly, especially at our secondary level. Our kids haven't had to make graduation pathway changes because they've chosen virtual learning. They're able to stay. And if we do go to distance learning, they become one group. And it's a seamless transition. Seamless is a very relative word, but it is a easier transition. So I want to close with saying we are going to be dealing with this, learning and teaching, social, emotional, and mental health for many years, many years. We're going to have to look at how we do MCAs. We're going to have to look at how we assess the achievement gap or the opportunity gap. Because for many years, we're going to see the effects of this pandemic on our kids. And everybody's dealing with that. So I am hopeful that we'll continue to have these conversations in education and change what we're doing in the future, good, bad, or otherwise. I think we really need to take a look at it. I also want to say, while I was up here presenting, good, bad, or otherwise, this was an opportunity that truly took a village to build. So thank you to our staff, especially Marty and Nick. I don't think they had a summer either. She mentioned administration. I don't think they did either. Our principals, district office administrators and departments, technology, TLS, student information systems, nutrition, transportation, HR. Leslie at the front desk was fielding calls left and right about VLA, facilities, health and safety. I know there's so many thank yous and everybody's already done it, but I couldn't leave the podium without saying that. One of the Kids Club presenters said there's fear and uncertainty. And that is an understatement for this. There is definite fear and uncertainty. But I know that everybody wants what's best for our kids here. And so with that, we go into it with, we're not opposed to reevaluating. And we aren't opposed to looking at things differently. But we're going to give it our best shot when we start. So, any secondary questions?
I have a question.
Or
so for the virtual learning kids in the secondary level, you mentioned interacting with peers. So I'm guessing there will be some sort of class list type or something so that kids know, especially the virtual learning kids, they won't really know who's in their
Are you talking,
class.
did you say elementary or secondary?
No, secondary.
Yeah, so on Fridays, they'll for sure see their class real time on Fridays. At the middle school, they've even brought their hybrid kids on Fridays. So on Fridays, VLA kids at the middle school will see their whole class with them. I think high school is, I think it depends on the content. If you really need to support those VLA kids on Friday, or if you can invite your hybrid kids in, our teachers are thinking of all kinds of ways. We've even had questions of, well, can I bring my VLA kids in during the week? Absolutely. The more we can get in front of our kids via live and real time and schedule it, the better. So they will know who's in their class.
Okay, so on Fridays for middle, it's almost like that's their class time. They will log on for that full time. But high school, it'll vary depending on the class?
No, VLA will log on Fridays for sure.
Okay.
It's the hybrid kids that teacher will make the decision, do I need to focus on my VLA kids because I've had my hybrid kids for 2 days? Or is it something where I want the whole class there? So, but the VLA kids are for sure have that schedule on Friday mornings.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions, Kelly. So one of the things that you had mentioned was that there will be 7.5 hours a week that hybrid students will have teacher contact, and between 5.5 and 10.5 hours a week for VLA kids. So one of the things I noticed with one of my distance learners in the spring is that you could not have paid him to reach out to a teacher. And so how do we ensure that our kids aren't just, whether through lack of initiative or fear or not wanting to look dumb or whatever it is, how do we ensure that they remain in contact with their teacher during these types of experiences?
So I'd offer that timely attendance is going to be a bigger one, where I don't anticipate that it's going to be, what color is the sky type of question. It's going to be an engagement with the teacher that way. So that virtual engagement. But I hear what you're saying about the reaching out. So that's where that Friday guaranteed showing up comes in. Our teachers are good with reading kids too. And so they have that afternoon time that maybe they could reach out and schedule with him, extend that olive branch to see if they'll come in. So I think we can ensure that they're being engaged and active, and we can see them on Fridays. I think as with in-person, teachers will have to be reading kids, and that just adds another layer of what we're asking them to do, because it's through a screen and anyone can do that stuff. But I mean, that's what we can offer right now.
And then one of the other questions I had was around special education, and maybe this is Anna, I don't know who the right person is, but how do we ensure that special ed kids who are doing VLA are hitting all of the milestones or having all of the support or whatever that they need to get their education?
Anna, if you want to come up, but I would say, I know they're having IEP meetings with every child to start this year. So, and sitting down and talking about exactly what you're saying. What is our milestone? So I'll let Anna.
That is exactly correct. So every family will be offered an IEP meeting to then amend their IEPs to add the services for full in-person, also for the hybrid, what that will look like for them for hybrid, and then also if we have to go into distance learning. So that will be offered to every family. They have that opportunity to meet and determine what are those support and work on those IEP goals. So it will continue hopefully as seamlessly as we possibly can. And those students that are in VLA, we have at the elementary level, we have actually restructured so that they have a specific VLA teacher with them so that they can then set up those meetings so that they can use Google Meets and utilize those processes to see each other face to face through this little computer.
And then the last question I had was, well, this may not be my last question actually. You talked about how some students and teachers would choose the pass no credit. Can you help elaborate on a situation where that would be the case? because I think, I'm assuming, or I don't know whether in the before times if we've laid it out, enumerated it like that, but I think it would be helpful for people to understand what is an appropriate reason for deviating from the traditional grading that we plan to do.
I think appropriate would be relative. So I think that would be what a family would decide. I think it's all of those things we worried about in the spring that we weren't sure existed, that we know for sure that they exist. So that student that has to help with family finances and isn't there to do his work during the day, but can do his work, so he's maybe not getting that A or B, but he's pulling a D because of life circumstances for him. You know, students that are not able to log in because they're helping their siblings. Students that may not have reliable internet. You know, just kind of all of these things that we talked about. I would offer just even the mode of learning and mental health and things that families are thinking about. We just want to have, I don't want to use it as an out because it's not an out. It's just a way to acknowledge learning and give them credit, but also acknowledge that this was a weird time. This was a tough time. So I think it's going to vary. And we've always had this option for our electives, but it's been a teacher initiation, like teachers kind of saying this should be pass, no pass. And correct me if I'm wrong, but students now and families can say, we want this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's also, we've had it, it's not something that we've used, but now it's, you know, COVID didn't create inequities in education, but it certainly shows us what we need to do differently. So it's kind of our stopgap for that. Yes, Sarah?
One thing that we really consider when we talk about high school specifically, and I'm an advocate or like to also share that our high school students are often consequenced more severely for underperforming or not performing than, for example, our elementary and middle school students. So last spring, our elementary students were not graded at all. Middle school students had a pass or an incomplete, and high school students have huge ramifications on graduation. And their credits and our graduation requirements then could mean that they don't graduate from high school. So taking some of that into account, some of the things we're allowing for flexibility for elementary and middle school, also to apply to our high school students. And as high school principals, we're advocates that our high school students have trauma, and my high schooler still needed family supervision, and she didn't have any. She's gonna hate that I said that, but some of those things that are happening at home as well, and high school students needed that opportunity to be able to still receive the credit so they can graduate.
And then another question I had is, so when you had talked about how this, the way that the classroom structure is set up at secondary, when it goes, if we go to distance learning because our numbers change, then the students who are in VLA and the students who are currently in hybrid will now be one large cohort, correct?
With a regular scheduled real-time Monday through Thursday.
Okay. And so with that, can you talk a little bit about, you know, I think probably some hybrid parents or parents who are sending their children on the dial are expecting a specific kind of instruction. Can you talk a little bit more about what the teacher instruction looks like and what the classroom environment might look like at the middle school and high school for students who are there in person, and what the VLA kids can see or what kind of opportunities they can take advantage of while the hybrid kids are in class?
I'm going to lean on Ms. Lopez because I know she's done a lot of work with this and with her staff, and I think you can do a better job than I can explaining it.
So, Simi, I think what you were asking was, well, the hybrid students, what are they doing in the classroom while the students are at home What are they doing? That
Yes, that, and also how does the classroom look if the instruction is, if teachers are uploading something by 8 in the morning, what does the classroom environment look like, and then what does the VLA environment look like?
So we're looking at like a flipped model. So our teachers are going to be videotaping themselves doing a lesson. So they might do their read aloud. I'm thinking of language arts. They might have a writing prompt. They're going to go through it. They're going to go through directions, and that all gets pushed out at 8 o'clock. Then the students that come into the classroom, it can be one of many. They could show them the same video that they showed the other students, and then now it's enrichment, or maybe it's support, or they can teach it live what they just posted on the website. So the same lesson is going to work in all three, whether they're hybrid and just at home that day, or the virtual learning students. And then during that time, so on group A, cohort A is getting the instruction. So then during the time later in the day where the teacher's in the office hour, that's their time then to provide any enrichment or support for the students that might be struggling with that lesson of that day, the students that are in distant or virtual. Does that make sense? And think about it, like we've looked at this, so you might only have 2 kids in a virtual, you might have 3 kids in the hybrid, so think of how many kids are in the building, then how many students are actually out there, not working with 32 kids out in the virtual hybrid part, because they might have 13 in, and they're that day, and there might be 16 out. So that's what we're doing. And the middle school has done a lot with flipped with the classroom, and I think the big thing is making sure that the instruction is really clear, slow, step by step for middle school students. And we learned that last year because instead of just doing writing instructions, they needed to hear the verbal instructions from the teachers. So we're doing both. Okay. Does that answer? Yes. Okay.
So I guess I just had one question, and that is, as you had mentioned, we're kind of all in uncharted territory for the most part. And do we have a process then to kind of gather what's working, maybe what might need to be changed, and how often would we make those changes as needed?
So I believe the calendar was introduced, that would be based on COVID cases and things like that. So that's one process for reviewing the health and safety piece of it. We want to be careful and survey fatigue of our families, but we know we're going to want feedback, especially when that trimester deadline comes, where parents are going to need to decide, am I going to stay in virtual learning, or what model is the district in? What does the COVID rates look like around us? So we have set kind of that first week of November as that deadline for families. So making sure we gather feedback before that so we can start having conversations. So I anticipate we'll be doing parent surveys and evaluating and seeing how the learning, and along with, our teacher feedback. Formative, are your students growing? What is working? What's not working? What do we need more? What do we need to do more professional development in? What do you need more time with? So we certainly have a process for that, and the timeline built out as well.
Kelly, I have one other question about elementary VLA. So because they have dedicated teachers, if we go to VLA if we go to distance learning as a district, the elementary students who are in VLA will stay with VLA. They will not become part of a classroom cohort from, Gray Cloud or whatever.
Correct. If they're in VLA right now in elementary, they will be with that VLA cohort for sure for trimester 1. That will not change if we go distance learning in the beginning of October.
Thank you very much for the update. Lots of great information. All right, 8.2, first reading of annual policy reviews. Assistant Superintendent Julie Nielsen will join us for these.
Good evening, Chair Brunette, school board members, Superintendent Jacobus. Each year there are 10 policies that we are required to review. These reviews take place to reflect updates in Minnesota statute, the definitions of terms, legal references, and cross-references. On our board policy committee, we have Simi Patnaik and Pat Driscoll, who work with our district leaders as they review the policies and make recommendations. This evening, we have policies from the 400 series, 410, 413, 414, and 415, the 500 series, 506, 514, 522, 524, 616, and 806. At this time, we are going to just pause on policy 413 and 522, and those will be coming forth at the next meeting for their annual review. But this evening in front of you, we have policy 410, family and medical leave. And after the review, there were no recommended changes. Policy 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse, no recommended changes by the committee. 415, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults, no recommended changes. 506, student discipline, no recommended changes. 514, our bullying prohibition policy, no recommended changes. Our 524 policy, technology acceptable use and safety, there were minor edits to reflect current practice and references to another policy. And then 616, our school district system accountability, there were minor grammatical changes. And 806, crisis management, there were no recommended changes from our policy committee. And so with that, I would just offer if there are any questions. I know Simi and Pat, you were part of those conversations as well.
Anyone else have questions, comments on any of the policies?
And the reason there are just typically very few edits and changes is because these are the policies that are reviewed every year. And so they are our most up-to-date policies.
All right, so they'll be back next week for a vote. Next time for a vote.
Thank you.
Next week. Thank you very much. And thank you to you, Pat and Simi, for reviewing those. All right, 9.0 discussion items. We don't have any this evening. 10.0 are action items. 10.1 is the approval of the adjustments to our face covering policy.
Good evening again, Chair Burnett, school board members, Superintendent Jacobus. This evening we have in front of us, as shared at our last meeting on August 13th, that we would be coming back with a more robust policy, which is in front of you. Also, just to note that we did have policy 808 already in place. I believe it was a service animal policy, so we have changed the numbering to 809. And just to highlight, I know that you have a copy in front of you, but where there were edits and changes, first of all, underneath definitions, you can see that there are clear definitions around disability, the district, face covering, face shield, medical authority, medical condition, parent, as well as visitor. Number 3, in the area of exemptions, on the first approved copy of the policy, though that area was stated as exceptions and alternatives. And now you can see that it's very clearly laid out for people in regards to wearing face coverings and medical conditions. On page 5 of the policy, you will note that there are specific procedures added in as it relates to students on page 5 and 6. And then as we enter onto page 7, procedures around employees, visitors, and school board meetings. And then finally, area 7 on page 8 talks about the posting. Following the approval this evening, this policy will be sent out to all schools along with the exemption form that has been created. The policy needs to be posted as well as shared with staff, so everyone is aware of what the policy requires. Area 8, compliance, there were portions added in there. First of all, under A, compliance with our dress code policy 504, compliance with policy 514, our bullying prohibition, as well as harassment 525.1. And then there's also an area that includes discipline of students, as well as discipline of employees. And that is a new area. And I'm really hoping as we look at that, that is something that we won't need to use, but really feeling like that was important that we had something in there to show the seriousness behind our staff and our students wearing face masks. So with that, any questions? I would just summarize by overall, the policy content didn't change. There were added definitions, some added language, but the basis of the policy in requiring face masks for students and staff exists. What was created that will also be found on the website underneath the policy will be the exemption form if there is a reason that masks cannot be worn.
All right, so I guess first I will accept a motion to approve. Moved by Katie and second by Sharon. Any questions, comments? I know I just had one on C, the face covering definition. I know I had seen some things about gaiters and that they were not necessarily as great as a regular mask, and we still have it in there. Is there any guidance on that piece at all?
Yeah, I think what our licensed school nurses shared from MDH is that having something on your face, as long as it's covering your nose and mouth, is better than nothing. And I think what was shared earlier is we don't want to have to be policing the type of face mask, the quality of fabric. I think sometimes it's a personal preference of comfort and sensory on the face. And so we have continued that in there, and I believe what Tara shared with our system leaders is that it's better to have something covering your nose and mouth that you're comfortable with, that you're not picking on all the time, than having nothing. And so therefore that was left in there.
Okay. Sounds. Anyone else? All right, although, oh, sorry, that's right, it's a policy. So if anyone has any comments, now we could. All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 11.0, 11.1 is our superintendent.
Spend a little time and thank people. I want to thank our cabinet members for making sure my mic is on, correct? Thank you, Pepe. As you know, this ends 37 years in education, and I've been working since I was 14. I did work as a janitor in a school district where my uncle was the superintendent, so I feel like I've done some jobs even before I became a teacher. My wife and I met teaching at the same high school and coaching. Our wedding was mostly kids in our class. And she's a Facebook person and keeps up with our kids that we had when we taught. Now they have their kids that are in college and out of college, and it's been a great journey. But I couldn't have gotten here without the people that you see in the room today. Our cabinet is unbelievable, and part of what I feel like the timing was right is because of the team that you see in front of you. Julie Nielsen was one of the first people I met. Before I even interviewed, I came and talked to Julie when she was the principal at Middleton. And right from the very first conversation, I was impressed, and I thought, wow, she is amazing. And she's proven that over the 8 years that I've been here and coming in as an assistant superintendent 6 years ago. She's been an amazing colleague. I've learned so much from her, and I can't wait to see. I believe that her skill set with our team now will move our district to another level, and I can't thank her enough. Mike Johnson, who left quickly, and not quickly, just left earlier this summer, and now he's taking over at Eau Claire. I know that they are so fortunate to have him because his ability to look at different issues, he was such a wonderful, kind problem solver, and a very just a colleague that I learned a lot from too. And both of Julie and Mike, as they work together, were an amazing team. We now, as you've seen, Kelly will move into the position along with Tyrone Brookins, and both of those folks. I've only had the opportunity to work with Tyrone a short time, but I am jealous I won't get a chance to watch his leadership move forward. As mentioned, he stepped in and he has created trust with our elementary principals that he's going to work with. He has a phenomenal background and sense of humor. I've already learned a great deal in a short time, and I'll probably be calling him and asking him questions and just life questions as we go forward. And Kelly, you've watched her lead teaching and learning. I believe we have one of the greatest teaching and learning teams and focus now under Kelly's leadership than I've been part of in my career. And now that she steps into the assistant superintendent role, this is going to be a dynamic team that is going to do great things. She also has taught me a lot and taught us a lot as she's come into the district. You have seen Pepe in a short time, and he started with us in December, and what he's done for our communication has been amazing, especially in this time when we had to close down and now all of the different things that we're communicating. He's had to suffer through when we had a 2-minute video to produce and it took 4 days. And every time I wrote anything and he rewrote it many times, and he's been just a great help in helping me and move forward. Dan Payan, we're fortunate to hear a little bit of his stories each time he presents. But as far as a person of high integrity and honesty, you couldn't have a better person in charge of the money in our district. And as you know, it's a big district with a lot of lines of code. I always knew that whatever Dan was bringing forward, I had complete trust, and he taught me so much about the district. I think for a while he thought, you should know a little bit more about these line items. And so we sat down and worked through, and when you look at where we are, we thought before before the pandemic, we were at a point where we were looking at that financial health that we had worked for so many years. Then because of the closure and that deficit spending and where we're going, we're kind of back to where we were a number of years ago, but I know under Dan's leadership, we're gonna move forward and get past that. We introduced Anna. She's going to move forward with special education, and our most vulnerable kids that come to us with needs they need a skilled person with empathy and creativity, and to be able to look at the ways that we unlock the way kids learn. There's brilliance in every one of our kids, and particularly in our special needs kids, and we just need to find out how do we pull that out and how do we unlock that. And I know Anna is going to help us move forward. Kristine Schaefer, another person that was principal here when I started, and it was similar to Julie when I sat down with her the first time. I was so impressed, and then when she was able to move into running our equity and achievement department, that's when our equity work really became the foundation of what we're doing in the district. And if there's one thing I'm most proud of in the work that we've done over my time, it's our equity work, and that was because of Kristine and her work. She then helped each one of the, Tarina as she came in, and Corey as she came in, and now Wayne coming in to set the stage for us to continue to move forward. And she has a great sense of humor, and she is, every day, she brightened my day when I had a chance to talk with her. Bob Lawrence in community ed, this was a tough spring. And he did a phenomenal job having to make difficult decisions to furlough. And Bob is an interesting person. He looks at life in a way I hope I could look at someday. He's positive in the middle of some difficult times, and he's created a team and a fun atmosphere in community ed, which is a great place to work because you're looking at creativity, and you saw our early childhood, and that's under Bob's leadership. And I know that community ed, every year we look at new ways to help our community. This year we had the kickoff of our Revitalized Foundation, and I can't wait to see when we get back into a little bit of normality where that goes. And can't thank Bob enough for all the work that he's done. Our other Bob Berkowitz, I don't know if Bob ever sleeps because of all of the work that he does in technology. He can text faster than anyone I've ever seen, and he showed me his home office, and there's 2 giant screens that he can have different things. He was telling me 3 or 4 different spreadsheets, so he can talk on the phone, type on the computer, and look at what's going on. But when he was in our department, before he took over as director, the last director, Andrew, said, Bob is the one I go to. He's my go-to person. He can pull a rabbit out of the hat when you have a problem. And he has done that every single day. And I hope, as we get into the school year, he does take some time to sleep. Kevin Witherspoon, Kevin was an assistant principal when I got here, and his background in special education made him the school expert. And I remember having conversations in his office. He also did the scheduling, and then quickly moved into, with his abilities and potential, as our director of special education, as you know, and really started to move us forward and put the team together. Then moved into human resources. And now, again, it's been a difficult spring and a very difficult summer. And under Kevin's leadership, he has hired wonderful people. He is making strides on how we can address things. It's a tough job because you're the one that has to say no and hold accountable the policies in an empathetic and kind way. So as we look at our current cabinet and people who have left us, right now we're poised on greatness, and I can't thank this team enough because I wouldn't be here or wouldn't be successful without them. You see some of our great principals here. We have an outstanding administrative team in the district with our system leaders and our principals. They have a lot of fun together as they work really hard. And this summer has been, again, another challenge. But last spring was a challenge. And the way they were able to work with parents and kids and teachers as we worked through was commendable. A district of 19,000 kids with 54,000 voting patrons, and if everyone has a nuclear family, we're talking about thousands and thousands of parents. In the 8 years, the number of phone calls I received because people were not happy with working through a problem with the principal was minimal. I think people would be shocked, and that's a tribute to our principals because they work so hard to problem solve with parents. And again, truly I have learned so much because of our principals and what they've helped me to do. So I just want to thank our teaching staff. We have some amazing teachers. I will never forget some of the classroom lessons that I've been part of. Our bus drivers, they were so welcoming, and they are the first people that see our kids in the morning. They create the culture, and they are such a great group to work with. They problem solve so well, and they are always willing to look at new ideas. Carrie Olson, who runs is the director of the department, again, is creative. I've tried to push her on so many different issues, and every time I ask her another question, she goes out and works to see if she can implement it. Kwame and sorry, I try not to touch my mask. I must talk with my jaw compared to you guys don't, because yours don't fall off, they stay, and I marvel at that. But Kwame also has where we are with our facilities, and his attentiveness to our schools and our departments has been outstanding, along with Wendy Peterson in our nutrition services. It's been tough because we've had to furlough people, and she's done it with empathy and kindness. So I could go on and on. As you know, I've had a few cups of coffee. But I'll really miss the people I worked with. And I'm a better person because I was here, and I'm a better leader. And I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. When Leslie Boyd called me at 10:30 after the board meeting to offer me the position, it was one of the greatest things that happened. And after I hung up and I looked at my wife, and we both said, oh my gosh, can you do this? I could do it because of these people. So thank you. I'll look forward to watching the greatness that happens as we get into the school year. And Ron Cath, thank you. Ron was part of and Tracy was here before. Yeah, thank you so much, because I couldn't do it without a board that allowed me to work through and trusted me as well.
All right, well, I'm not going to be able to talk, so I'm just going to introduce our next little surprise here. We have a short video from your colleagues around the district who wanted to share some favorite moments of your 8 years with us in South Washington County.
Things I'll most remember about you, just you stopping in, checking in with our kids and our staff on a consistent basis. It meant a lot to our staff and our students. So thanks again, and best of luck in your future endeavors.
One of my favorite memories was actually from some of the long board meetings that I got to sit in on as a member of Cabinet for Keith. Someone early on told me that Keith struggled to say the phrase Bruegger's Bagels. So just about every cabinet update that I typed up for him, I would try to find a way to include a reference to Bruegger's Bagels. Most of the time he would skip right over it, but every once in a while I'd trip him up, and it was a lot of fun.
As I think about my favorite memory, the first thing that comes to mind is Love of Reading Month. Every year, one of our teachers invites Keith to come out and to read to their entire grade level. But what he really does is he spends more time talking to them about his own journey as a student, and he shares with them that it wasn't always easy and that there were some challenges along the way. You can just see the students are really appreciative of the honesty that you display and are inspired that in spite of challenges some may have during school, the opportunities for them to go on and do great things are endless.
I've so enjoyed working with you. You're such a positive presence in buildings. I always love how you got into schools, joined morning meetings, talked to kids in the hallway, really wanted to get to know them as individual little people. You've done so much for staff. You've done so much for us for our buildings and so much for us as a district.
I've always appreciated your demonstration of kindness and gratitude. I just truly appreciate your leadership and your attention and dedication to our students, families, and staff.
One of the things that I truly appreciated about your leadership these past 8 years is that you came to our buildings. You talked to children, you talked to staff, asking me how the year's gone, how you can help. And that truly is important as a superintendent, and I thank you for that.
One of my favorite memories of you was my first year as principal when we squared off for egg roulette, and you were a stinker and you knew how to pick the hard-boiled eggs, so I would have to smash the raw eggs on my head. You were the winner, but it is something that I will always remember, and students loved seeing the both of us smash eggs on our head.
Thank you for everything that you've done for our district during your time here. I've enjoyed working for you, and I wish you well and enjoy those ski runs.
Congratulations, Keith, and good luck on your next chapter.
Keith, congratulations on your retirement.
Wish you much relaxation, but knowing you in this short time period, I have a funny feeling that you're retiring from the position, but not necessarily retiring from the field of education.
May this next chapter of your life bring you joy and relaxation. You definitely deserve it.
Thanks for everything, Dr. Jacobus.
Good luck, Keith, in retirement. We know you're going to enjoy it.
Happy retirement, Keith.
Happy retirement, Keith.
Enjoy those days off where you get to water ski and do everything during the day.
Dr. Jacobus, congratulations on your retirement. You will be greatly missed.
Good luck to you in your retirement. Thanks for all your service.
We wish you nothing but the best in retirement. Congratulations and enjoy.
Oh, congratulations
on your
retirement.
Will.
Miss. And in true Linux fashion, someone didn't unmute, but we will miss you. Thanks, Dr. J.
I wanted to say thank you for all your great leadership, your service, your commitment to equity for all of our students. It's been a wonderful experience working with you as an administrator.
Thank you, Keith, for all you did. We wish you well on your retirement.
Thank you for your leadership. Looking forward to seeing you do great things inside your future on your own time off with your family. So enjoy the summer, enjoy retirement, bigger and greater things ahead for you.
Thanks, Keith, for everything you've done. We really enjoyed working with you over the past few years, and just enjoy the time with your family and your time in retirement.
All right, so we have Sierra Sorensen-Wagner and Carrie Lopez with a little something.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Keith, we're here to share in this wonderful occasion. It's called retirement. I think I have a few years yet, but on behalf of the South Washington County principals, we wanted to give you a little something and just thank you for all your hard work, being there for us in the buildings, but most of all, being there for all of our kids. So again, thank you, and I'm going to let Sarah speak, and then we're going to share a little treat with you.
I had to write what I was going to say down. So Dr. Brookins whipped out a Teddy Roosevelt quote yesterday at our system leaders meeting. And I know it's one that speaks to you. So I'm going to read it. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the very best knows in the end of triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. On behalf of the leaders of District 833, thank you for being in the arena with us. Thank you for your courageous heart and your daring leadership, for continuing to strive every day to make us better. You have spent yourself in a worthy cause. You have made a difference, and you will be missed. Thank you.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Wow, that's beautiful. I've told people that I will be starting to watch Days of Our Lives, and General Hospital and I will wrap up and snuggle in that.
Okay, we're gonna go hang it up back
We're gonna go hang it up.
Very, very cool. Well, there's going to be a theme tonight, I think. So the board, of course, has something for you as well.
Can I ask, was this Julie's idea, this whole thing? Because I asked her not to.
I wish I wasn't as eloquent a speaker as Ron or what Sarah had mentioned. Probably one of the proudest moments of my 21 years on the board, I think, was hiring you. Or being on the team that hired you. I'm sorry, it wasn't just my choice. The difference you've made is just hard to even describe. As you said, we have an amazing team, and we will do great things, but you started it. You planted the seed, and we'll grow it from here. So I will miss you as well. We also have a little something. Like I said, we've got kind of a theme going, so
Really?
we'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Okay. I can wear one. Oh, great.
So,
Yep.
I made this one. This is water theme, of course. It's
Yep, yep.
actually called Storm and Sea. And then we all signed the back. So.
Oh, thank you.
Hard to believe it's your last meeting. All right. Take a breath and, well,
Thank you very much.
I don't know. That's it. I guess we're done unless anybody else wants to say anything. But if not, 12.0, future meeting dates, September 10 and September 24 are regular board meetings. And with that, we are adjourned.